Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Leo. I'm here with my friends Sosa and Gus. Gus, Sosa, always a pleasure.
Howdy, great to
Pleasure.
be here.
Yeah, mainly using this as an opportunity to tap into the mind of an established uh, free man, if you want to call it that. But Gus, you're legendary amongst Sosa and I because you helped us along the way. But a lot of people might not know your story or where you're from. So you want to just share kind of a background about yourself?
For sure. Thank you for the intro, Leo. Yeah, as Leo's just said, I'm Gus from New Zealand. For those who don't know that, that's close to Australia in the Pacific. Um, I grew up with a family of three older brothers and two parents. And I originally really was brought up sort of middle class, working like everyone else in the rat race, trying to make my way through. And what really helped me was looking ahead to see what the life was like for those of my brothers, those ahead of me who made decisions for their lives that seemed to oftentimes put them in a place where they couldn't break free, they couldn't make decisions to get themselves independent. And so a lot of these influences helped me early on to work out my way of how to get financially free, what my values were, and where to arrive at. And so a lot of things that influenced me was how to get out of the rat race, and how to really prioritize my highest values and put them first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the way Gus and I met, for those that don't know, was in Bali, of all places, at this backyard jungle gym. There was no walls. It was pretty much two stories, and you could see the jungle outside, which was pretty cool. And we don't look like the average Bali guests. You're either from Indonesia or you're from Australia or New Zealand. And, we're people thought I was Middle Eastern, Persian, I guess. And Gus just asked us where we were from. And he told me he was a life coach, and I was instantly drawn to that. Had always been a lifelong learner, and it was just so interesting. So I said, "Hey, I have this podcast, Gus. You could be my first guest." And we got that recorded, link that later. But we got to know a bit of your story, and I had told you guys I feel great about my life, but financially, my bank account is dwindling. Like once I get to like maybe $2,000, I have to go back home, and then I have to start at zero from essentially nothing. And you taught us financial principles, and you helped us now develop financial security, which feels incredible. And we're working towards plans of freedom like you have. But my dream was to travel the world, and you had already done that.
Yeah, I must say it was absolute pleasure meeting you there in Bali. Still remember the day when I met you and your lovely wife, Violet, in Bali in the gym, and then we got into a big conversation. And the next thing I know, I'm on this podcast, casting live. It was amazing, and just to see your openness. You were a guy that had a lot going for him, and same with your wife, Violet. You had a lot going for you as a young couple, but you were still very humble and you wanted to learn. And so it was just a great meeting of the minds for us to work on some bigger things that you really wanted to ascertain in your life. And I love how you mentioned that you managed to get financial security, but now you're working on financial freedom. And I think that's a really important distinction for our listeners to understand that. And I think we worked on a bit of this with you, Leo, as well earlier, that just getting that financial security is exponentially greater than being in a place of financial insecurity, regardless of how much you earn on a weekly or annual capacity. You could be earning 100 grand a year, but you could be spending 110 and going out of your mind with anxiety. And so the person who's on 30K but spends 25 and saves five of it and knows how to live in the sweet spot of life is far better off mentally than the one who earns 100 but spends 110. So we understand that just
Absolutely.
getting financial security, you can exponentially get above those who earn in exponential amounts above you, just by simply being able to secure your emotions, knowing what your bottom line is and how to progress from there. And so, yeah, it's true. I've traveled the world, 40 different countries, lived in the Amazon jungle with no internet, no power, stayed with tribes over there, literally catching food to keep ourselves fed, from alligators to to taking leeches off our body to all that kind of stuff. And all this kind of stuff I got to experience because I had done the first thing, which was to gain financial security. And once you do that, you can really learn to paint with the paintbrushes of your own color. When you don't have that, you got to paint with the paintbrushes that life gives you. Because when you're in a fight, flight, fear mode, even though you could be earning a lot, you're always in that anxiety mode of going, oh, I've just got to get back on the horse and earn, and there's no goalposts in sight. So yeah, I love how you mentioned that, Sosa, and I think that's really important to highlight as we go forward, just as a background to know that we have the ability to identify what is our true north, what is our price that we need to just get our life secure, then we can become creative.
Well, that leads me to a first question, guys. For the people listening, if you can give them your top 3 things to develop financial security, what would it be?
Well, I love that question. I would say there's 3 really powerful tools you could use. But the first one would be to understand at a macro level, not a micro level, your total incomings and outgoings to get a baseline of what you need to put away. So what I mean by that is you should know at a yearly scale what you're basically going to need to spend on it in your basic categories of life. What most people do is they have bills come in and then bills go out, and then they bury their head in the sand. They pretend these big bills that are coming, they won't come. They know they're coming at one level, but they blocked it out. They want to have a party in the meantime. Then they wake up when all their bills are due in December going, oh, what happened? I didn't expect these. Even though they knew they were coming, they chose not to sort of have it at the forefront of their mind, and they go to panic zone. Well, the way to eradicate that is to, once a year, have a calculation of what you're likely to have in your bills, what's your basic income going to be. As long as you've got a balance on a yearly and weekly scale, you can get out of fight flight mode. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is set up supportive systems that are going to support you. So automatic payments, get a banking system that's going to support you. So I've never had to pay a bill in the last 15 years of my life. So how have I done that? It's not that I haven't paid my taxes, because I have. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about I've never had to consciously worry about paying a bill of my main bills. And how I've done that is I've applied this principle. I've simply tallied up all my bills for the whole year, and I create a separate bank account, and I take the amount of money I need each week to pay that plus a buffer. So I put a buffer on it of extra maybe 5%, 10%, and I don't question it. And all my bills get paid out of that account. So I've never had to pay a bill in the last 15 years of my life. So I've been able to live like a kid for the last 15 years without having to worry about bills. So it's been great. So I would say that, the meta-analysis plus the automatic systems, those will be 2 massive areas. And then the third, obviously, within that is basically being able to set it and forget it. Once you set it up, set it and forget it. And within that is just set those margins. If you set margins within each account, not only will you get financial security, within that we have a certain thing where you have an emergency account, and you quickly get to a month's worth of emergency bills ready in an emergency. So for instance, you get laid off or something happens, you don't have an income, you have a month up your sleeve. Now that has so many benefits. It's not just security, but that helps you negotiate better at work. It helps you talk better with the boss, be a better creative thinker, be less from fight flight. So just having a month up your sleeve for financial security, that in itself will help. So probably those would be my 3 top. I could go on to any more, but they'll be the 3 off the bat, if that makes sense.
Sorry, I'm sure some people heard that and they said, how many bank accounts did you just say? I'm struggling just to fill up my one. For those that are, I guess, struggling to fill up that one bank account first, how can they, I guess their question would be like, how can I look past this when I need to get just the essentials in mind?
That's a great point, Leon. What I would say to that is it would be doing the step 1. Because if you're earning 100K, but your bills are 110 because you've got lifestyle creep. And this comes down to another point, which is, are you living to keep up with the Joneses? Are you living another person's vision that isn't inherently yours? And so what's happening is you're starting to allow your lifestyle to catch up with your colleagues who drive BMWs, Lamborghinis. Maybe you've recently entered into the sales team and you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, yet you've just learned you're this new wonder kid at sales, but you don't really have the security to back that lifestyle. You're starting to live out of someone else's vision. It's called habit creep. So I would say No, first get your security by getting security within, knowing you don't have to live up to anyone else's standards, only yours. And for the initial part, set the amount that's going to get you into the black, not into the red. So as long as you're systemically not going to the black, you've got a foundation to launch from to set up these other accounts. But I wouldn't look at doing that until you can at least know every week you're getting a bit of breathing room every week. You're going in the positive. If you're going in the negative, you need to address that from the macro scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I would say too, on how to increase your income, like of course that's a huge component is dematerializing and living more humbly. Beans and rice can go really far. But reducing your expenses is one area and increasing your income on the other area is mainly dependent on your vehicle. Doesn't matter how incredible you are, if you're at a dead end job that caps you out at $20 an hour, then you've already maxed it out. You can't do
That's
any
your
better
ceiling.
than that. So I would find vehicles that most of the time are in sales, where the better you get, the more money you make. Because it doesn't really happen that way at a lot of other jobs. Now, I'm not saying to do sales forever with these principles that Gus teaches, and we'll go more into depth too. For everybody listening, uh, we're actually business partners, and we'll be putting together a group course coaching program that will help you systemically be secured, be inspired, and help you get into states of flow. Whereas Gus calls it, you get into effortless, fulfilling fruitfulness. And what that really means, though, is that sweet spot of life where you're doing what you love to do, right? So you build security, and that helps you get to that next step, which is then being able to be coached.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And just on Sosa's point, he's right about, I was just focusing on the part to get security. You can do it with any job. But to Sosa's point, we haven't even focused on maximizing your income, which is increasing your value to the marketplace, the ability to earn. But once you've secured the downside and you've got to the point where you could still sustain yourself on 30K, then imagine you turned a job into 50K and you didn't change your lifestyle. Now you've got a 20K buffer beyond what you were already living at. So we haven't even begun to touch on that point. But Sosa's right. Your best defense is offense, but if you have got a leaking boat, it doesn't matter how good your offense is, eventually you'll leak everything. So it's important to do both. But a lot of that has to do with actually clarifying what your true vision is, what your authentic self is. Otherwise, you've got to find a way to spend the money. You will. If you don't know how to cap the downside, you will spend the money. You'll find a way to keep up with the Joneses, if that makes sense.
No, I gotta be vulnerable and share a story that's kind of painful. I was writing this out, and I don't know how much detail I want to go into right now, but I was terrible at money. Uh, when I was younger, I was pretty good at it. I worked pretty hard. I didn't have much things growing up, but once I was 19, 20, my mom made it big. She started making a bunch of money, and um, I guess started justifying all the money she started giving me, and I started working less at a job, and I let her support me. Shamefully, I lost all my dignity, and let her pay all my bills, and she gave me tons of money and then some, just to for me to be able to chase my dreams. She helped me fund a whole restaurant, social media marketing company, funded my way through school, failed that multiple times, and she kept helping me just push through. But ultimately, the well started running dry in my early 20s, and quickly decided to just take matters into my own hands, when she said, you know what, in a few months it's probably going to be down to zero. Violet and I just decided to make it on our own, and we found the first apartment we could afford was $650, close to the university, and it was pretty ghetto. I'm talking, I wouldn't let her ever walk the parking lot by herself. Our neighbors were always fighting and yelling. There was people with their shirts off all over the place, holes in their shorts. And the first jobs that we decided to get, because we didn't have any jobs and we needed some, was as a dishwasher at a restaurant, at a steakhouse. And I convinced the manager to hire Violet at the same time. And I did that job for a week. Then he hired Violet. I had a little bit of cooking experience, so I was a pastry chef decorating donuts. And shamefully, I allowed my wife to be a dishwasher. Violet was a dishwasher for about 2 weeks, few weeks, and she would cry. There would be maggots and things that stuff she had to clean, and that was rock bottom financially.
Yeah.
That's because I had all this money years before and never saved any of it. I was buying Amazon stuff every single day, restaurants, always ate out. I still didn't learn my lessons though, because things, we advanced. We didn't stay at those jobs, but decided to sell everything that I inherited, which was roughly about 10 grand. I convinced my employer to let me go remote, and it was a sales position. And that's where we decided to start traveling. Again, that 10 grand started dwindling. The one-way ticket to Bali was $500, not too expensive. But when I met you, Gus, I maybe only had half of that left. And that's why I felt like a financial ruin. I didn't learn my lesson because we went to Hawaii to try to make it there. Stubborn, still trying to live that island life. And we almost slept in our car a few times. And I had some good camera equipment and technology. I would pawn all that stuff for pennies on the dollar just to pay for some bills, only to a few months later to get it out and then pawn it again. Did that 5 times, pawning all my stuff. Finally, it wasn't until I started having a stable, secure work ethic and stable, secure job that I started applying those principles you taught me. And luckily now, slowly but surely, it took 2 years to develop security, but we're 4 months ahead of rent, got buffers on every single account, more than a year's worth of security in the bank, and feels amazing. So we were that bad. It doesn't matter your age, it just matters when you start applying these principles.
I love hearing that story, and you tell stories so well, Sosa. And tell me, how does it feel for you what difference has it made for you to go financially struggling to financially savvy, or to develop financially to savvy, and then to actually enter to security, to have 4 months up your sleeve without worrying, to know that you're not going to be in flight mode for at least 4 months? What does that feel like? What difference has it made to your life, your bottom line, your thinking, your feeling, your creativity?
Such a breath of fresh air and excitement too, because I can't wait to get a year ahead of rent. And it keeps compounding, and like you said, you can get to a point where you never really have to worry about bills ever. And that's valuing my peace of mind and my freedom more than a Gucci belt, Louis Vuitton shoes, or we've even gotten down to a point too where we don't even eat out, and we're just getting good at living humbly. And then whenever we do splurge, we splurge because we saved up for it first. So it just feels incredible. I love it. I recommend it to anybody.
That's amazing. And Leo, on the same token, I want to ask you a similar question. And I know you've experienced a similar thing, but at a micro level to what Salsa's describing. And I know for you, you had a sticking point around the inconsistency of money and how that was affecting your bottom line, your anxiety and your work ethic, and how that would spiral out. But then correcting that, I want you to could you speak to a bit to that story, and then what effect it had on your flow state going into the next months and so on?
Yeah, one of the things I feel that people don't really touch on, apart from just, I need money to survive, are all the little side effects it has in your life, or the ripples, I suppose. Because it gets to the point where it's not just, worrying about your bills, but it just, your emotions start to get out of whack. You can't focus down or concentrate on some things. And that's really what I was starting to notice. It was like, hey, I'm doing okay, but I'm not where I need to be. And just that in itself was having its ripples in my life, where I couldn't drop into that flow state like I have more recently, since using some of the tools that we've discussed together, able to actually sit down and know that this is covered regardless, frees up a lot of. It took a toll on the mind, and now that capacity is freed to focus on um, what I really want to search for, or what I really want to dive into.
How instant the kind of the transformation was, because the next month you were into flow state by literally making that one adjustment.
It was, yeah, literally a little tweak, and then it's like your whole picture just readjusted, and you go from seeing the dark sunset over here where you're not supposed to go to just bright fields and pastures, and everything's okay again from one day to the next. It's pretty nuts. Um, which is nice now that we're at this level where we are in a sales position and we can make that money and readjust ourselves that quickly. Before I got there, I remember one of the biggest things I struggled with growing up was just choosing what I wanted to do with my life. I think that was one of the larger energy eaters in my life throughout my youth, which led to a much deeper hole of problems in itself. But it felt like I was doing the right steps, and the right steps still, there was something off. How do you contrast the steps that have been laid out for you, that you're supposed to take, versus taking hold of your life and diving into something more authentic for yourself? Because a lot of people
Right.
just, or like I did, struggled just to find that authenticity in my youth. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah. I love the question, and this is at the heart of Ignite. This is the heart of Ignite, is to create an environment for people to excel mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, to find your transformative insights, and then to find and follow your passion. So that's Ignite. And so what we're going to look at is the opposite: what people do by default and why we do it by default. See, most people, when they grow up, they don't live a life of authenticity. And the reason for that is that we're social creatures. So who feeds us? Who puts a roof over our heads? And what's the cost of that? The cost of that, generally growing up, is conformity. We have to conform to another set of ideals to get fed, to get clothed, to be sheltered. And because of that, we learn that we have to sacrifice a bit of what we want from our instinctual childlike desires to what needs to be socially acceptable. And what happens is, when we develop that, we translate that into adolescence, into our peers. And for a lot of people, they never individuate. They never get to the point where they do a full 60 income. What do I truly want? Because it's been welded to, not only do they need to socially fit in, but now they have to fit in with their career. Now they have to fit in with all these other add-ons, and they never get to a time where they individuate and differentiate who they are. And so that's the reason, that's the context within which people are fighting. They're taking the right steps on paper: be a good boy, get a university degree, or go get a higher paying job, be a stable earner. And some of these are great things on paper, but if it's not for that individual, it will crush their spirit long term. And they end up in a prison of their mind and a prison of society without even realizing it. And that's where you get injected values, injected vision. You're living for cultural norms. You're getting the white picket fences. Everything on paper says you should be happy, yet you're dying within. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at how to get inside the individual again and expose what truly is authentic to that individual. Now there are two mental rules to that. The true steps that we need to take is, number one, we need to do the opposite of receive and react. Most people throughout their lives have learned to receive and react, to fit in, to not rock the boat, to conform and survive. Because back in the animal kingdom, or in prehistoric days, if you conflicted with your family and the tribe, you'd be kicked out, and then you wouldn't survive because you needed them to survive. So that's hardwired, built into the human nature, right? But in order to live an authentic life, we have to do what's the hardest thing we have to do, is go against that hardwiring, which is to perceive accurately and proact accordingly. So the first thing we must do if we're going to live an authentic life is to perceive accurately what I call your soul DNA. When I say your soul DNA, that's what truly lights you up. It's what truly makes you alive. It's what gives your life meaning. And until and unless you really identify that, and I've got a really thorough process that we do in the Ignite Online Transformation course. In the first course is you're going to find out how to find your soul DNA. And once you find that, that in itself can change your life, right? But the second step to that is to proact then accordingly. Sometimes you can actually know everything, but then you can go back to old habits, right? You go into the unthinking life and you start to react again. But you've got to proact accordingly based on what you perceived. And then finally, you can go into the third element, which is unconscious competence, which is to perform effortlessly. And when you're performing effortlessly, that's when you're in real flow state on your highest priorities. And that's when you don't have to question the meaning of life. You know the meaning of life. When you're in that state, man, life just makes sense. You're at another frequency. And then once you're there, you go to the fourth stage, which is the fourth stage of oneness, which is basically to produce abundantly. And when I say produce abundantly, you're not just doing it from the outside in. You're not doing it from these actors that kind of do everything for the outside world and then they end up taking drugs and then taking their own lives because they're not fulfilled. You've got everything. You've got sustainability, like Sosa was saying earlier. You've got fulfillment, so it's internally gratifying and satisfying. And then you've got fruitfulness, right? And that is when you what I call an ignite, you experience fusion. And fusion is when you have the ultimate experience of oneness. See, most people believe happiness only comes when you have X things in your life. When you've got the family, you've got the white picket fences, you've got the job, you've got the Tesla or whatever. But guess what? With Ignite's vision of happiness, you experience joy as soon as you're on the way, not in the way. As soon as you start to make one step towards your highest priority, suddenly your prefrontal cortex comes online, your amygdala goes to the back where it should be, and you get fulfillment just by pursuing your highest priority. So that, I hope that answers your question. That was a bit more of an elaborate answer.
Absolutely.
To me, the biggest takeaway there is being on the way versus getting in the way. Like, just having the plan and having the steps and the clarity instantly gives you the feeling as if you already had it, because you just know it's an inevitability. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to mention that was one of the bigger things that, or at least no one really prepares you for, is you can still find a way to make sort of money where it almost feels wrong to complain when you're still just something's ticking away at the inside. And the results that leads to, like you said, alcohol, drug use, very repeated, I feel like, in our culture and in my own life as well.
Yeah. You're so right on that, Leo, because particularly in the Western culture, when what's worshipped is results, hard-end deadlines, that's the priority that's worshipped, is basically bottom line money, hard, cold cash, and results, right? And what that is, you're basically a lag indicator. All of society is judging their performance and judging their worth even on that main indicator, how much you're worth, your status. And when people are comparing themselves up to this, they're actually losing their authentic self by comparing themselves to this one image. And the problem with that is that we either go into retreat or overact mode when we compare ourselves to that hard standard. So when we feel like we're not measuring up, and you could talk to this, Leo, you either go into retreat mode where you might turn to substances and alcohol just to drown yourself away from the anxiety that you're not measuring up, or then you go into overact mode and you go into who can relate to this here? You go into ultra mode where you try and do more than enough, but it's unsustainable when you burn yourself out that way. Then you go into retreat mode. So either way, it's unsustainable when you compare yourself to an unrealistic expectation that's not your true authentic self. But where you can access bucket loads of unending energy is when you come to your soul DNA, what I call it, and you live your authentic life, and you have bucket loads of energy, and it spirals, and you will produce fulfillment because you'll be online with your highest priority.
Which is what Sosa and I actually spoke about at work the other day. We're like, man, we wake up and it's not that we have to do anything. We wake up with energy and we're excited because we know this is a part of the work, and it's a difference waking up with a purpose and excitement behind it, and waking up without a purpose with stuff to do on your plate and not having
on
energy
that.
to
I
accomplish
want to ask you guys some questions because I'd be very fascinated, because it's been this very true for my life as well. But I want to ask you guys, what was your process in going from waking up and working for the man versus waking up and starting working on your highest priorities? What's been the difference in your mindset, your heart, energy, and when did you notice the shift? Was it a subtle shift? Was it an overnight shift? What did you notice when you started focusing on lead indicators versus lag, and what difference did it make in your energy levels and your passion for the day?
I want to take that answer to a story that last year, 2 years ago, I had all this clarity. I knew I wanted to serve people. I wanted to coach. I wanted to pass on these life transformative principles. This was way before I knew the productivity techniques you've taught me. So I generally was just, essentially I was just like preaching to everybody. I was talking to everybody. I was creating these groups. I was gathering all these people together and building community and building relationships, and all was filling me up. I was so much in my zone. I was doing it for 8-10 hours a day. But then all the stresses of reality hit because I was doing it in a way that was not feeding me back. I was not producing results from my bank account. So I was doing all the fun things that I wanted to do. It's like I was just playing my music, but I rushed that process because I was trying to take care of the world before I was able to take care of myself and my family. So I took a big step back and I was like, man, I know what I really want to do and I know what I love. Like, I'm so blessed to be able to do that. But because I have responsibilities and I have a high standard for myself and for my wife for the quality of life that we like, I'm going to create a plan to build security. And it took me about a year and a half, and I enjoyed my life, of course, and had glimpses of my passion here and there. But after a year and a half, I called you back up, Gus, and I said, hey, I'm ready to make this happen. Like, I've built security, and you told me too, like, now I pretty much graduated to be inspired and to be coached and led and directed. And you have an incredible model too, where you have that base layer. Once you're in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, taking care of your food and your shelter, then you can now start working on relationships. And I did get to do that. I am investing in my dad, and this weekend I'm going to go celebrate his 60th. And that was something that a scarce person would not be able to really do. Invest in relationships. Because that costs money and time.
Yeah.
And when your mind is focused on just surviving or the dollar bills or chasing, you don't really stop to smell the roses. And when you taught me the lead and lag indicators and figuring out my highest priority, it totally calmed the anxiety of shiny object syndrome, chasing things. I'm the kind of person that can watch 5 to 10 videos on just what podcast microphone that I want. And you taught me, that's not really productive. That's not really in flow state. Like, it's fun, but at the end of the day, I don't, when I was doing that, I didn't feel like I made progress. But you taught me how to really be effective and to feel great about the results and do way more than I ever thought I could do.
Amazing.
Yeah, I basically spent my younger 20s in that exact same boat. Ended up in sales at 21, and without having that bottom layer secured or set up, really, it led to a very confusing road of several years of waking up just to get to the end of the day, just to numb out the end of the day, just to start it all over again with no end goal in sight. And that quickly gets exhausting, and it quickly builds on itself, and that came at the cost of friendships and relationships, and I'm sure a couple years off my life as well. But just definitely a confusing time without direction, and versus now where I wake up and everything I do throughout my day, my week, my month, it's all for a purpose. And there might be micro chasms within that, but the bigger picture remains the same. So it has its own like maze within the maze, and everything has a purpose behind it, which makes it just effortless.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. And what you're reminding me of is both of you learned how to perceive whatever you're doing is on the way, not in the way. Even though you both got full-time jobs, and you might say you're not fully in your nexus yet in terms of your full-time work employment, you both have got a clear picture of what that is going to look like, and you're both now using everything in your life to have it on the way, not in the way. So what is just that one distinction made for you, just knowing that whatever you've got in your day now, you're so excited because you can see the end in mind, that it's on the way, not in the way? What does that actually practically mean for you?
Freedom. It's tension release off the shoulders. I'm sure Sosa can relate, but it's definitely, it changes your perception of the day, the month, and the year. Because when I grew up, I never wanted to do what I was doing now. I was never meant for, or at least in my own mind, it was never supposed to be an office job. It was never supposed to be something that would take up that much time. So if you don't have that end goal in sight, you're just going to get frustrated every day. because you're doing something that you never wanted to do. And I'm grateful for the opportunities and everything that's brought. Um, but when we're kids or when we're younger, it's not the that's not the goal or end goal for us.
Amazing.
Yeah, I agree. The living so purposefully this way and having this much clarity allows you to say no even more effectively. And what I mean by that is when, don't get me wrong, but we only have so much energy and we only have so much time. And I'm quite an obsessive, fanatical person. Before these trainings that you've taught me, I would blow a lot of that time away. I would scatter the topics I would learn about, and I would talk to people a bit more. Not that talking to people and relating and building communities a bad thing. I just compartmentalize that for the evenings now, or I put that in its right compartment because I save all of my energy for what I want to do and what my purpose and passion is. And luckily, I have that kind of natural introvertedness to where I can do that for a long period of time. And whenever I do enter in community, I'm fully present and I'm fully there. But they say people who are very successful walk really fast. That's because they have so much purpose, so much intention that they have places to be and things to do. It's kind of like when you're making a sale, right, Leo? You know exactly where to go and what to do, and you have that one-track mind. It's more efficient that way to have a straight line than to be zigzagging around everywhere. And
It's like playing chess.
Yeah,
It's
No,
like playing
that's
chess. You're making moves just to get to that certain opening or that certain
exactly.
position, and if anything comes up along the way, you adjust, but you still have that blueprint for like, I need to get this here, 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 here to do this specific thing.
But I want to share this pyramid by telling you a little bit of a story, right? So I've been recently dealing with a client who's a woman, lives over in Britain, and she has been really struggling to get into flow state lately at work. Now, back in my old coaching days, in the earlier days, I might have worked on techniques at the higher end of the pyramid. You know, I might have helped her with breathing techniques, or I might have helped her with anxiety or self-talk, right? When all you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So you try and hammer everything. So this is what she would do when she would be really struggling. When every week she'd go to check her finances, she had to learn how to regulate her breathing because she ignored all her finances during the weekend, spent like crazy, and she spent on impulse buying to try and do retail therapy, and then she'd have to learn her breathing techniques come on Monday morning when she'd check her bank account, right? She'd freak out. So here's the thing. It actually helped. Her breathing techniques helped her calm down to handle her financial loss. But the only problem with that was she's having to do it week after week, month after month, and nothing was changing in her financial life. In fact, it was getting worse, right? But she was feeling better about it in the moment. So that's called using a band-aid solution for a systemic problem. And it wasn't fixing the problem. So what I enabled to do is I'm able to zoom out with this pyramid of life alignment now. And in about 2 minutes, we got to the root of her issue. We found out that her lack of flow state was because she was unsecured. She allowed herself to become unsecured because her finances, she had a faulty belief that she could somehow not take responsibility for her finances and somehow it would all work out. It'd be an amazing catchment system where it would just work out and she'd be taken care of. Where did that Pollyanna thinking came from? We retraced it into her youth, into her childhood, right? We then gave her the right belief to know that she's responsible for her finances. Then we gave her the plan, and what she needed to do was apply the macro level of income outcoming at a macro level. She had more than enough coming in. She knew the habits to apply and the right techniques. She just needed to apply it and have the right belief. So we corrected that, and then within weeks, she had got out of systemic panic mode and she got into flow state. Not by giving a band-aid breathing technique solution. And by the way, breathing techniques are great, yoga's great, Wim Hof breathing's great, all these things are great. What I'm saying, if you're using them for a systemic problem, therein lies the issue. So I tell that story because of the power of the pyramid of oneness, and it helps you to do mission number one, which is to perceive accurately with detail what the true issue is, and address it with the right solution, the correct solution, not a band-aid solution, but the right solution. Okay, so the point is, number one layer you have is your security layer. If you're not secured, doesn't matter how inspired you want to be, are you going to be able to sustain it at the highest level? And for how long? Okay, so within that secured layer, there's 9 areas of life. Okay, and some of them are your finances, your physical health, your intellectual, your relationships, your finances, your living environment. There's just a number of them. If any of those are, and they don't have to be abundant in them. I just mean secure. So if you are unsecured physically, you don't know how to secure your energy levels, you might not have the energy to work. Because you're going to be crashing high, crashing low, your nutrition's out, your sleep's out, you're in a toxic environment, right? So the whole first level is to get secured. Once you're secured, you've earned the right to live an inspired life, is to decide what your life's going to be about. Because you've now got the paintbrush to paint with. You've at least got the secured foundations. The next level is being inspired. Most people rush straight from being inspired to execute. The problem with that is, what's the problem with that? If you go straight from inspired to execute. What's that?
Frustration.
You're just shooting with no target in sight.
And how common is that in society? Do you see people get inspired with an idea and they do 150 things and hope for the best?
It doesn't last either. They'll burn out and go back to the old ways.
And can we relate to that? Have we? I know I've done that in my life. Can you guys relate to that very one, right?
Oh yeah,
I'm sure we all can. And so what's missing there is getting that next layer, which is called being directed. We need the proven blueprint to ensure we get to our end in mind. That is directly related to the results we're going to experience later on at the highest level, right? But you can't just go straight from the blueprint to results. You then have to execute on top of that, and that's called conscious competence, right? So execution goes on top of direction. Finally, once you've been executing consciously for a period of time, you've earned yourself the right to get into flow state on your highest priority. And what's it like when you're in flow state on your highest priority? Is there anything else that can match it in life?
Oof. You're just going.
It's hard to match that because that's what you're created for. That's your meaning of life. And it's not to say that will be your priority for the rest of your life, because priorities change. And the exciting thing is this system works for whatever your priority is right now in life. And you can get to flow state on that on a systemic nature. And then finally, once you've done that, you then go into fruitfulness. So you match, that's the final level of oneness, is your fruit represents not only your actions, but also your fulfillment. So you're doing the right thing, you're feeling the right way. So your oneness in being, oneness in doing, and oneness in achieving, and that's called fusion. And that's total oneness at the top. So therein lies, I've given you the basic breakdown of the pyramid, but within this, we'll teach you how to where you're lacking in your pyramid. This is broken down into different areas within each level of the pyramid, and you'll find out where you're lacking, where you're strong. And the unique thing about the course is you can chart your own course, and we'll enable you to get into your highest priority and get into flow state on it.
So there'll be more details for that coming soon. I feel like we've covered a good amount, and I'm pumped up. I'm excited that we get to live this every single day.
This is our reality.
Guys, thank you for watching. For those that stuck with us, you're our kind of people who like to go deep, who aren't in it. TikTok is great. I like it, but it's just that quick flash in the pan. Sometimes you need some depth and some substance. And, follow our channels. We'll be linking all those. Guys, it was a pleasure hanging out with y'all. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure to see
Gentlemen of
everyone.
alchemy, 100%. Pleasure.